Hi everyone, it's Danny. Okay, today we will discuss about how to water mounted orchids. This was a question sent in by my viewer Zane. So I'll show you how I water the different types of mounts that I have now that it's summertime. Then I'm gonna tell you how I water them in the winter time and also some other ways that you can keep mounted orchids watered. Okay, so this is the first type of mount that I have. This is a big orchid mounted on a quite large piece of wood. Usually I soak my mounts in the buckets that I use for my Vanda orchids, but not all of them get the same treatment. However, the big ones do, so let's go to the bucket now. So as you might know, I do keep 2 buckets of water in my balcony for watering Vandas and mounted orchids. I do, however, change the water and wash the bucket once a week, at least. It depends how dirty it gets. So for these types of mounts, which are pretty large, I just sit the mount on the top of the bucket like so. Now you might ask what happens with the new growth because water will get into it. That is true, but now that it's summertime, I'm not really worried about that because water will evaporate. Also, after this orchid sits like this for about 10 to 15 minutes, I get a tissue and try to remove as much water as I possibly can. So right now I'm gonna let this mount soak and I'm gonna go show you another type of mount. So here is a ceramic mount. Now this mount is really heavy and it will not float in the bucket. So I cannot really use the bucket for watering this orchid. So what I do is get a long tray and actually place the orchid inside the tray. Now I'm gonna leave this sit like this for about 10 to 15 minutes and practically it will soak up the roots and the sphagnum moss that I have, so I'm good to go. Now I'm not sure if this can be considered a type of mount, but it is a very tiny basket that has some sphagnum moss. I don't usually water this every day, but once every 2 to 3 days I do need to water. Now I don't soak this type of orchid because sphagnum moss is just so water retentive. What I do is either in the bucket or in the tray of water, I just dip this orchid into water like so, well, in the bucket. You get the idea. And the water level usually reaches the brim of the pot, and then I pull it out and I actually place it back. And that's all I do for this type of, let's say, mount or tiny basket. Other orchids mounted on cork go in the bucket as well. They just sit and soak for about 10 to 15 minutes in the bucket because they do float. And I've noticed that the more I soak the root system, the better it grows and the root tips don't actually stop growing. So that's how I water them in the summertime. Because in my summertime the grow space is very well ventilated, quite drafty I might add. It's also very warm and they do get dry pretty fast. I usually have to soak my mounts once a day, let's say in summertime. In the very hot days, maybe twice a day, but that rarely happens. Now in the winter time, the story is slightly different. In my environment, winter times are pretty cold. Let's say it can reach to 17 degrees Celsius at night in my balcony. Also, it is more humid for me and also water does not evaporate so fast. So I really do not soak my mounts in winter time. What I usually do is take them once a day or once every 2 days to the sink and actually run water on the mount and on the root system and I'm good to go, no need for soaking. Also in the winter time I need to pay extra attention to the new growth because water does not evaporate so fast. So I try to not water new growths, and if I do, I just try to dry them as best as I can. Now, depending on your environment, you can choose between the 2 techniques. You can either soak your orchids if you have a dry environment. Soaking is actually a very good idea in dry environments because it soaks up the cork or the wood and also hydrates the roots properly. However, if you live in an environment which pretty much has cool temperatures or is very humid, obviously water does not evaporate so fast, you might not need to soak the mounted orchids. Also, you don't necessarily need to go to the sink and water them. You can just get a spray bottle and spray the cork and the root system and you're pretty much done. But again, this really depends on your environment. And if you have a changing environment like I do, you kind of need to adapt depending on the season. Now, of course, if you keep your orchids in a greenhouse, it's easier to hose them down, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about normal home environments. So these are my techniques for watering mounted orchids. If you have a different one that works for you, all is well. All you need to keep in mind is that your orchid on a mount needs to be hydrated. It will dry up much faster than a potted orchid in any case. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and also share this video with your orchid friends. If you'd like to see more videos from me, just subscribe to my channel. I post on a daily basis. You can also leave me questions or suggestions for videos in the comment section below. If you click on the left side of your screen, you'll be directed to orchidnature.com, and there you will find care sheets, identification sheets, and also you can talk to us in the forum section. And if you click on the right side of your screen, you can watch another orchid video. Thank you for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye!